In this video, I'm going to teach you how to solve this book, i.e. Irodov. This book is considered by many people to be the toughest book on planet for JEE preparation, and not just for JEE preparation but for any kind of study of physics in general. So there's a lot of hype surrounding this book. Something like, this book is the toughest book for physics, not everyone should do it, it is useless for joint entrance, it is useless for studying physics, or it involves a lot of calculation, it takes up a lot of time. Some people say it's only meant for people who are God gifted. So we are going to take a deep dive and try to understand what Irodov is truly composed of. So I took a deep dive into one of its questions, in which one of the blocks of mass m was placed on an inclined plane at an angle alpha, and the coefficient of friction between the block and the plane was given. And then you were pulling it using a thread inclined at an angle beta to the plane. And you were supposed to find the value of beta for which the tension in the string was minimum. So on the face of it, this problem is super difficult, or it seems even unsolvable. You think like, what the hell, what should I do? And you get stuck and you start to worry about your insecurities and you start to think whether you'll crack JEE or not. But if you really look at the question and try to break it down into parts, it's not very difficult. So let me just walk you through the solution. Quick announcement, I'm making a crash course on Acad Boost for class 11th revision. So if any of you in class 12th right now and they haven't revised their class 11th very well, now is the time. So the course will be released in 1 to 2 weeks, and the pre-sign up for that is given in the description. People who pre-sign up will be given the course on priority, so don't forget to sign up. You just have to go to the link in description and sign up for it. So if you look at the problem, it involves a block which is placed on an inclined plane and is being pulled at an angle beta by a thread, and the angles are given to be alpha and beta, as you can see in the figure, and the block has a mass m. So we are supposed to find out the minimum amount of tension which should be present in the thread, and for that we need to find the value of beta which is optimal. Okay, so now first of all, and everything is at rest here. So now first of all, we break the components of the forces into the directions along the plane and perpendicular to the plane, and we write the equation along the x-axis. So according to the equation of motion, there is no motion in the direction of along the plane. That means the acceleration is 0. So we'll just write that the components of forces along this direction should add up to 0. So we write first component of forces t cos beta, which is the component of t along the incline, which is here. Then there's a component of mass, there's a component of the weight mg, which we write to be minus mg sine alpha, because it is present in a direction opposite to t. And then we also have the frictional force acting here, which is given to be mu into n. Mu is already given in the problem, so no issues of that. So you can check it out here. Then we write an equation in the y-axis, that is on the direction perpendicular to the plane. So now here we have first got the normal force, which is given by n. Now n will be opposed by both the forces which are going opposite to it, because there is no acceleration even in the direction perpendicular to the plane. So we write n equal to mg cos alpha, which is the component of mg perpendicular to the plane, and t sine beta, which is the component of t perpendicular to the plane, and since it is in a direction opposite to mg, we write it to be minus. Okay, so the normal force will balance the resultant of both these forces. So we write these equations. Now we can solve these equations to eliminate n, as you can see in this, as we have done in this particular equation, and you can find out t in terms of mg and alpha and beta and k. Okay, k is the coefficient of friction here. I have written it as mu, so you can write it as k here. I'll just change it, k into n. Okay, now for minimum t, we know that we have to minimize it with respect to beta as given in the question. So we write dt by d beta equal to 0, and by solving this equation we obtain tan beta equal to k, and we just substitute it in this equation and get the answer. Now if you look at the tough parts of this problem, most of it were involving some kind of calculation. So none of the free body diagrams were very difficult to make. Everyone knows how to write the x and y axis equations. The tough part here was to solve these equations and obtain the t here, which is purely a mathematical thing to do, which involves the elimination of variables. And if you look at the second difficult step, it was the minimization of t, for which we had to do some complicated derivatives, which was again a mathematical problem. And if you look at the third step, which was difficult, was to substitute this in here, which was again a mathematical problem and did not involve much of physics. So you can say that 80 to 90% of the effort in this problem is based on mathematics and not on physics. The point of this solution was not to demonstrate a solution or not to establish some kind of dominance on you guys that I can solve Irodov. The point of the solution was to demonstrate that it was not really a very difficult problem. You were just supposed to break it down into parts and solve. And the moment you break it down into two parts, that is, first of all using Newton's laws of motion to calculate the tension in the string, and then using the concept of maxima and minima to minimize the tension in the string, you realize that it's not really a very tough problem. It's pretty solvable, and most of it was just some basic math. So there are a few observations which I have to say about Irodov. So one of the observations which I made about Irodov is that it does not really involve a lot of physics in it, but it involves a lot of mathematics, and it does not involve a lot of formulae from the physics, but rather it involves a lot of complicated mathematical constructs. So the usual procedure of solving Irodov should be something like you just break down the problem into parts. So for example, if you look at the problem which I solved, then it had two parts. First of all, you just had to calculate the tension in it using friction and using the concept of tension and using the concept of Newton's laws of motion. And then you were simply supposed to find out the minima of it using another mathematical problem. So this was more of a mathematical problem than physics. The only physics involved here was to identify that there's going to be some kind of friction and to use the Newton's laws of motion on the problem. And then you were just supposed to solve those equations, obtain the value of the tension as a function of beta, and then minimize it using another mathematical operator, which is differentiation. So this is one thing which is pretty obvious to me now, that Irodov does not really attack on the physical insecurity of the student studying it. Like, it does not really attack on the physics of the problem, but it rather delves on the mathematical insecurities of students. That is, it exploits people who are not really good at their mathematics, who are not really good at solving equations, who are not really good at variables, who are not really good with concepts like integration and differentiation, right? Because I have solved the book thrice, and on the basis of that experience, I can vouch for the fact that not a lot of problems so you can say that roughly 75% problems in this book are purely based on something which is very basic, something of the level of the book H.C. Verma, or something which everyone studies in their coaching classes. And the reason why they are really tough is because they involve a lot of complicated mathematics, and not because they are conceptually difficult or they are tough from the standpoint of physics. There are roughly around 25% problems which are really tough when you talk in terms of pure physics, but that's it. Nothing more than that is really tough in the book Irodov. As opposed to that, if you look at the book called SS Kroto, which is used by a lot of Olympiad aspirants, that is a lot of physics. That does not involve a lot of mathematics, but it involves a lot of physics. It involves a lot of symmetrical thinking. It involves a lot of thinking which really demonstrates the principle of physics in action. So the conclusion is that you don't need to be too afraid of Irodov. It's just a book which is slightly more indulged into the mathematics of things. And then people would ask me that, why should I still solve Irodov? Why should I not go for some objective type question bank for joint preparation? Or why should I not go for a book like H.C. Verma? Or why should I not solve my coaching material? And these questions are really valid questions, but the answer to these questions from my side is that you should still go for Irodov for a lot of reasons. The first reason is that a lot of JEE preparation is basically solving problems at a very high speed and solving a lot of mathematical stuff. Because if you look at the curriculum of IITs, that is what is taught in engineering in IITs, it involves a lot of mathematics, and it involves a lot of equations, it involves a lot of constructs which are similar to those in Irodov. And when the person who is setting the IIT JEE examination paper thinks of solving or putting some push questions in physics, he would try to put questions which test those abilities, whether someone who takes entry through the joint entrance would be able to handle the workload at IITs or not. And one of the good ways of testing that is to put a lot of mathematically involved stuff in JEE Advanced paper, which is why you would see that a lot of questions in the JEE Advanced have a lot of complicated mathematical solving behind them. Even in physics, if you see, there's a lot of mathematical calculation involved. There are a lot of questions which involve maximization and minimization. And the reason for that is to train the students, or to test to students, or to filter out students who are really good at mathematics. So if you look at a book like Irodov, it prepares you really, really well for such kind of conditions, and because it involves a lot of mathematics, it does not. So if you look at the physics involved in Irodov, it's not a substandard physics. I'm saying that it's probably the equivalent of or better than the physics involved in JEE Advanced, but the thing which makes this book difficult is the mathematics involved in it. And I can vouch for a fact that if you really solve this book, to the end, and so roughly 70 to 80% of the syllabus of Irodov is in IIT JEE Advanced syllabus as well, and if you solve 70 to 80% of this book, I can vouch for a fact that your speed will become dramatically better. You will improve significantly when it comes to solving physics problems, and it will also improve your mathematics, because it involves a lot of integration, differentiation, maximization, minimization, trigonometry, solving equations, solving differential equations. So that leads to a lot of mathematical practice as well, and that's some real life application solving, and it will really help you boost your scores, and if not your scores, then definitely your ability to think in a mathematical way, right? So these are some skills which make Irodov a very precious book, because it helps you improve your physics and your math at the same time. And if you look at, if you had to solve just one book for IIT JEE, or then I would say it's H.C. Verma. If you were to solve two books for IIT JEE, then I would say it's H.C. Verma and Irodov. It would take a lot of time to solve this book for sure, but the practice which you will get out of it is much better than what you would get if you were to solve just a simple objective question bank or just a series of past papers. So that's one of the reasons for solving Irodov. I think one more important reason for solving Irodov is that it's a very big confidence booster. So I remember when I was in class 11, there was this guy who was kind of a mediocre IIT JEE aspirant, and he bought an Irodov, and there was a look of confidence in his face that I'm solving Irodov. So when you solve a book like Irodov, when you are able to solve questions of the Irodov level, then it leads to a lot of confidence booster in yourself, and you tend to think of yourself as a better physicist or a better student of physics than others, because you're able to solve the problems of IIT from the book Irodov, which is a really huge confidence booster, and it's observed that people who are able to solve questions of this level definitely make it. So that's, I think, another important reason why you should solve this book. Plus it helps a lot in revision, because it has a lot of problems. It has some 1600 problems, so that's in itself a very good amount of question bank for you. And those problems are all quality problems. None of these problems are below the JEE advanced level, so that's an important booster. So the major takeaway which I would say here is that Irodov is definitely a book which will help you understand a lot of physics. It is definitely a book which will help you understand a lot of mathematics as well. It will help you develop speed. It will help you understand physical concepts in a much better way than any other book can. But I would still suggest that you should solve this book if and only if you're confident that you know your basics, because if you don't know the basics, then Irodov can be really depressing for people, because it really demotivates them if they are not able to solve any of the problems. So go for Irodov only when you have your concepts built up to the H.C. Verma level or up to your coaching class level. Thanks a lot for watching this video. I hope this helped you, and you can check out Irodov, and you can check out the solutions for Irodov as well in the description section, and don't forget to sign up for the course which I'm making for class 11th. And if you are in class 12th watching this video, then you can go for the course which is already on the website for JEE Main 2020 preparation. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. Have a nice day. Bye.